Okay, so our task now is to change what we previously had, the J list, to a J table, which is more organized. You see the only difference is the columns, but it requires a change in just one or two places of the code. So let's go back and let's start off by tidying up a couple of things we still had to do here. Let's look at the welcoming image to begin with. So I'm going to take my JLabel that I probably had before, give it a better variable name. Oh, I still have it from last time. Right, no problem. Don't need that. I can just select it. I can see it on here. All right, I'll change its icon to an absolute path. Again, you wouldn't do this in a real system. You would copy it into the project first, but we'll do it a little bit later. I'm just testing this out. I've found an approximate size of it that I want it to be, which is about that size, and I've thought that's about 200 by 260 or something like that, and I resized the image that I downloaded outside. It's much better to resize it outside than try and do it in Java. It's a bit of a pain to do it inside Java, but it's very easy to do it in Photoshop or Preview, or anything like that. So I'm gonna insert it now that I've resized it, because the first time I inserted it was a bit big. So it's called Prabhu Small. There we go. Okay. Shift things across a little bit. There he is. Okay, perfect. And I'm just going to add a little label into the top there as well for the whole ordering form. Give it a decent size. I'll change its font. Give it a reasonable title size. Let's go with that. No. There we go. And give it a proper bit of text. Sometimes you have to drag and drop this carefully and let it go slowly, or else it doesn't take. There we go. Okay, it looks better. Okay, so that's still the original version. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to, just so you can see what it looks like, I'm going to leave this list here. Just going to make it a little bit smaller. It goes out of the way. It's inside a scroll pane at the minute. I might need to resize the scroll pane. Is that the way it works? It looks like it. No, maybe not. Try it with the list one more time. Alright, it's not letting me do that. Let's try this. There may be a minimum size for it. No, that's working yet. So it's got a minimum size, right? If I'm gonna do what I want to do here, as in show you both at the same time, then I'm gonna have to make this window a bit bigger. Yeah, probably can go over there for a minute. And this can go over here. And what I'm going to do is insert a JTable. I don't know what's going on with that. Hang on a second. So my scroll pane is here. I've got a scroll pane. I've got a table inside that scroll pane. It automatically puts a scroll pane around the table. and I've got, okay, now I've got my list there, right? So I can put them both side by side. Oops, with a lot of patience. Oi. There we go. So you can compare the two of them together. Right. Now this is where you come across the bug with the current version of Window Builder. Normally you'd be able to click, after you've selected a table, you'd be able to click on, that's a scroll pane, the table, I want the table. See, TBL orders. Normally you would be able to select its model and click on it. Don't do this. Don't do that, because that's where Window Builder crashes. So we're not going to do that. What we're going to do is change it by code. So I'm going to give it 4 columns. If you remember, that was for type, size, quantity. I don't think we had price, but type, size, quantity, and price, which I'll leave blank at the minute. And then I'm going to add records in there. So instead of modifying it here, I'm going to do it by code, by hand. And remember, this variable is called TBL orders. So right in here, remember, I'm going to, thankfully Window Builder has got the hint now, and it started to define things up here, so I can access them in the whole program. That's good. So I'm going to make a new JTable, and like I've done with the list, I'm going to have a default table model inside it from the very beginning, and they're going to Eclipse is going to complain because it doesn't know what that is. So I'm going to say import. So it starts off a new table and it fills it with an empty box that I can later, access to put stuff in. Right. So here goes. This one, what I've done here was quite awkward, a bit difficult, because I had to combine everything in one string. It should be actually a lot easier with the table. But first of all, when I make the table, I'm going to make sure that I put some columns into it. So I'm going to say I can, for this, I need to pass something into it which has four words in it that it's going to use for the columns. Now I can either do this with an array, or I can do it with a vector. Let's do it with something different so you see what a vector is. So vector, let's call it column titles. At the minute, Java doesn't know what a vector is, so when I do that, I can just import it. It's a class, which it's a resizable array, basically. So vector column titles equals new vector. There we go. And I'm going to say column titles dot add. First one is going to be quantity, I think. Was it? Oh no, type, size, quantity, price. So first one is type. The next one is going to be size. Next one is quantity. And the final one is price. Alright, so once I have that, I can say JTable dot get, whoa, not JTable, table orders, TBL, and you know what? I can actually let's do this a sensible way around. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make the data model before I make the table, and then pass it in. So I'm going to say this new default table model here. I'm going to define this here. I'm going to call it table model equals new default table model, and I'm going to pass it in here. So table orders equals new JTable, and I'm going to pass in TBL model into it. And now, default table model. Right, so I'm making a variable here, which is a default table model. I'm going to personalize it, customize it with columns, and then I'm going to pass it into the table when the table gets created. So whenever the table gets created, it automatically has 4 columns. So I want to TBL the actual model of it, dot set column identifiers, that's the one, and I'm going to pass in column titles. Right, how does that look? So I've made a new table model. I have made an array, a variable array of a vector of 4 different things, and I'm setting the table model's columns equal to that, and then I'm creating a new table, and I'm using that table model I've made. Now remember, this bit here, all of this bit here is all about the data, and this bit here is what it looks like. Right, let me just run that. Quick save first. I just run that and see what happens. Okay, good. So I have a table here with type, size, quantity, and price. Good. Bear in mind that one little bug that people usually come across is that if your titles don't appear, inside your table, it's because your table isn't inside a scroll pane. And if that's the case, you need to select your table and say, well, mine's already contained inside a scroll pane, but you have to select your table here and say surround with scroll pane. Okay, so let's go back to our code and let's add our order in. This should be pretty simple. So this was the hard bit. We had to do this with our list, and we had to make our string up. So first, add to the list, the J list. Now I'm going to add it to the table. Alright. JTable. Okay, so the first bit is I'm going to get the data model. This should be dead easy. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to need a variable for it, so it's default table model. Let's call it DTM. It's called coffee orders, coffee table, equals, and the table's name is TBL. Was it orders? TBL. What do I call it? Here we go. It's called TBL orders. Should have just trusted myself. TBL orders dot get model. There we go. And again, I need to be specific. I need to cast that to a default table model, like I did before with the list. And now, quite simply, I can add in, but I need to make a vector to add the data into as well. So I need a vector data equals new vector, and in there I can say data dot add. What's the first column? The first column is going to be the object that I add in. So let's say that's going to be type. So that's coffee text, I think. Alright, whoops, spell it right. Second one, data dot add. This one is the size. So it's going to be, what did I select there? Message, was it? Message. That's the size. Whoops. And then data dot add. Oh no, hang on, no, I'm changing messages. Oh no, message is fine. That's okay. Next one is quantity. So I'm going to add in there. It's a string, so I'm going to say coffee quantity. Remember, I put that double quote first as a little trick to make sure it converts the number into a string. And the final one was price, and I haven't got anything for this, so I'm going to put in there unknown, because I haven't actually thought of this yet. Alright, and the only thing I have left to do is add that into the table model, which I called coffee table. So coffee table dot add row. I'm going to put the vector in there, and the vector for this one is data. Okay, so let's give that a shot. I'm going to run this, and let's see what happens. So as I add in a cappuccino, venti cappuccino, we'll have 2 of those. So there you go, 2 cappuccino venti. Yeah. A grande americano, I'll have 5 of those. Now, as you can see, the option on the left is looks much better, and it's much better organized. So that's using a table. But essentially, if you look at the code, it's exactly the same thing. The only difference is that with 1, you're getting a default table model, and it's only got 1 large row to add in. A default list model, and it's got 1 large row to add in, so I've merged together the strings. The other, I'm getting a default table model, which is 4 columns, so I can add them in separate columns.